The girl in the yellow raincoat. You know that feeling, when you're walking alone, and for just a second, you think someone's behind you, and then you hear it, the sound of 2 footsteps, when you only took 1. That's where this story begins. My name's Elijah Woods. I'm 29, work remote, live alone. I don't go out much, but I run, every night. It's how I deal with the silence in my apartment, and the silence in my head. I'd never believed in ghosts, or stalkers, or any of that paranoid stuff, until 3 months ago, the night I met her, the girl in the yellow raincoat. It was early March. I remember because the sidewalks were slick with melted snow, and there were still leftover Valentine's Day decorations drooping from windows. It was a Tuesday. I'd worked late, didn't get out for my run until almost midnight. I kept it slow, hoodie on, earbuds in, low volume ambient music. Nothing dramatic. Around mile 2, I noticed someone ahead of me, just at the edge of the sidewalk under a flickering lamppost. She was standing still, facing away, hair long, wet, tangled, wearing a bright yellow raincoat, hood down. Odd, sure, but I figured she was waiting for a ride, or walking home. I passed her. She didn't look at me. No big deal. I kept running, but half a block later, I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Footsteps behind me, even, soft, deliberate, perfectly timed with mine. I stopped. So did the sound. I turned around. No one. Sidewalk empty, street silent, rain hitting puddles in slow, rhythmic ticks. I scanned behind bushes, over fences. Nothing. I brushed it off. Maybe I was just tired. Headphones back in, kept moving. But then, at the next corner, she was there. The girl in the yellow raincoat. Same spot, same posture, still facing away, still not moving. But I'd passed her already. There was no way she could have gotten ahead of me. A chill moved down my spine. Not from the weather. Something deeper. I crossed the street, picked up the pace, didn't look back. I live in a small apartment complex. Takes a keycard to get in. I scanned mine. Heard the lock click. Just as I pushed the door, I looked across the street. She was there again. This time, she was facing me. I didn't see her face. It was shadowed, but I could feel her looking, not just seeing me, studying me. I locked the building door behind me, double-bolted my apartment, tried to laugh it off, thought, maybe she's just someone with issues. Maybe I imagined it, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I opened my blinds just a crack, and froze. She was across the street, standing on the curb, staring directly at my window. That's when I noticed something that turned my blood cold. She wasn't wet. Her coat, her hair, her boots, dry, bone dry. I grabbed my phone, called the non-emergency police line, explained. They said they'd send someone around. I stayed by the window. She didn't move. 10 minutes passed. Then, the power went out. My apartment plunged into darkness. The only light, the faint red glow of the microwave clock in the kitchen. And through the window, nothing. She was gone. Or so I thought. Then came the sound. Tap, tap, tap. Not footsteps. Glass. My bedroom window. I live on the 3rd floor. There's no balcony. There's no ledge. But there was tapping. I grabbed a flashlight, hands shaking. Walked slowly down the hallway. The tapping stopped. When I reached the bedroom, the window was closed, but on the glass, a wet handprint. And on the floor, a single yellow button, smooth and glossy, from a raincoat. The cops came, searched the building. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, no evidence. Just a strange, damp spot outside my window. They told me maybe it was a prank, or stress, but I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. For weeks, I saw her, at the edge of the park, outside a cafe window, behind me in reflection. Always the same coat, always dry, never blinking, never speaking. Then 2 nights ago I found something under my doormat, Another yellow button. I've since moved. Switched jobs, new city, but sometimes, in the quietest moments, I hear it again. That soft, wet sound of rubber boots on pavement. That tap, tap, tap on my window. And every time it rains, I check the closet. Because a yellow raincoat doesn't take up much space, but it shouldn't still be here. That was just the first. The next one doesn't wait outside. It's already in your home. The locked door in apartment 3B. There are places in your home you've never opened. Closets, drawers, corners. You walk by them every day, but you never really think about them until something knocks from the other side, and you realize you're not the only one living there. My name is Natalie. I was 26 when I moved into apartment 3B. I'd just gotten out of a long relationship, lost my job, and needed a place I could afford on my own. That's how I ended up in East Bridge Heights, an old brick complex built in the late 70s. Cracked paint, water-stained ceilings, rent so cheap it felt suspicious. The landlord, Mr. Travers, was in his 60s, friendly, but twitchy. When he handed me the keys, he looked me in the eyes and said something that didn't register until later. "Don't try the third lock, the bottom one. It sticks." I thought it was just rust, or a structural issue. I nodded, took the keys, moved in. But I'd find out soon. It wasn't a mechanical problem, it was a warning. Apartment 3B was decent, a little musty, some creaks and groans, but livable. There was one thing that stood out, a small, narrow hallway leading to the back of the apartment. At the end was a locked wooden door, no knob, just a keyhole, and a deadbolt with 3 locks. I figured it was a supply closet. Maybe the landlord stored something there. I didn't think much about it. For the first few nights, everything was fine. I unpacked, watched movies, rebuilt my life in small steps. But on the 5th night, I woke up to a sound. Pause. Low, rhythmic, scratching. It was faint, coming from the direction of that door. Not random, patterned, deliberate, as if someone or something was trying to scratch letters into the wood. The next morning I asked Mr. Travers about it. He didn't smile this time, just muttered, "Pipes. The building's old. You'll hear things." But the sounds kept happening. Every night, same time. 3:11 a.m. Always from the door. I tried to ignore it, moved furniture in front of it, ran white noise machines, put on headphones. Didn't matter. The scratching continued. Then one night I decided to look closer. I ran my fingers along the frame. The wood was grooved, like someone had clawed at it from the inside, and carved into the bottom corner so faint it could be missed was a word. Stop. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening. 3:11 a.m. The scratching started again. Then, click, the first lock. I bolted upright. Click, the second. I scrambled out of bed, backed down the hallway. The air felt heavy, metallic. Then, silence. The third lock didn't move, but I stayed up the rest of the night, frozen, waiting. In the morning, I stormed down to the office, told Travers everything, demanded to know what was behind that door. His face went pale. He sat down slowly and said, "This building used to be a halfway house. In the 80s, room 3B had a resident, Michael Givens, paranoid schizophrenic. One night, he attacked another tenant, claimed there was something in the walls. They found him in that back room. He'd locked himself inside, carved symbols into the floor. They said he'd scratched his own eyes out. I didn't believe it. I thought it was some twisted urban legend. Until he said this. No tenants lasted longer than 2 weeks in 3B since. I should have moved out. But I didn't. Call it pride, or fear of being crazy, or the desperate hope. It was all in my head. That night I stayed up, Lights on, knife on the table, phone in my hand. At 3:11 a.m., the power cut out. The hallway light flickered once and died. Then came the sound. Click, click, click. All 3 locks, one after another. I held my breath. The door creaked open. Inside was darkness, but not empty. I swear I saw something moving. Tall, hunched, twitching. Not a person, not anymore. Its skin was wrong, like it had been burned but never fully healed. Eyes, or where eyes should have been, completely black. It took one step into the hallway. I dropped the knife, slammed the door shut, shoved every piece of furniture I had in front of it, and then silence. I moved out the next morning. Didn't sleep that night. Didn't pack. Just drove. A week later, I got a call. It was Mr. Travers. New tenant moved into 3B, first night when she left before sunrise. She said the room behind the door was already open, and someone had left a carving on the wall. I asked him what it said. There was a pause. Then he whispered. It said, "Natalie, come back. You can change locks, you can move cities, you can try to forget, but some doors don't stay closed forever." The man in the ceiling. Most people think intrusions happen through the front door, a window, a broken lock. But what if they never had to break in? What if they were already inside, waiting, watching? Above you. My name is Jenna. I live in Tempe, Arizona. Well, lived. I left last spring. I was 34. A single mom with a 6-year-old son named Daniel. We had just moved into a 2-bedroom rental, part of one of those older, beige-plastered suburbs with cactus landscaping and buzzing power lines that always hummed louder at night. It was a quiet area. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels unnatural, like it's waiting for something to make a sound. I'd just gone through a tough divorce and needed something affordable, fast. The place was worn down, but it came cheap. And more importantly, it came with a locked gate and a big living room. Daniel loved the layout. He could ride his scooter from the hallway to the front door and back. Things were going okay, until the noises started. It began as tapping, at night, when Daniel was asleep and I was folding laundry or watching TV. I'd hear soft thuds from the ceiling, not loud enough to alarm me, just strange, like the shifting of old pipes. But it never happened during the day, only after 11 p.m. Then it changed. I'd find cabinet doors ajar, drawers left open that I was certain I had closed, and Daniel began sleepwalking, something he'd never done before. Twice I found him standing in the hallway at 3 a.m., just standing there, staring at the ceiling. When I asked what he was doing, he'd whisper, "He moves when you sleep." I finally called maintenance, asked if they could check for animals, raccoons, rats, something. That's when I found out the house had an attic crawl space, accessible only through a square panel in my bedroom closet ceiling. I hadn't noticed it before. The ceiling was high and the panel was flush. The guy came out with a ladder, opened the hatch, and climbed up. After a few minutes, I called up to him. He didn't answer. Then suddenly he dropped down, white-faced, silent. He looked at me and said, You said you just moved in, right?" I nodded. He stared for a long second, then said, "There's an old mattress up there, and food wrappers, and a bucket." The cops were called. They searched the attic and found more. A few empty water bottles, a tattered pillow, dirty footprints on the beams, but no person. They guessed he'd slipped out through the back during the day. Said it happens sometimes. Squatters using attic spaces between tenants. I was horrified. We changed the locks, sealed the crawl space shut with screws. I tried to move on, but Daniel kept waking up in the middle of the night, kept whispering about the man in the ceiling. One night I asked him what he meant. He pointed to the air vent above his bed. "He watches through there when you sleep." I started staying awake longer, sitting in bed with a flashlight, listening. Sometimes I'd hear creaks. Sometimes Nothing. But every time I closed my eyes, I'd see him in my mind. Not his face. I never saw that. But the idea of him. Lurking, above me, inches away. Every sound became a potential movement, every silence a warning. I told friends, family. Most thought I was traumatized. Some suggested I see someone, I almost believed them. Until the night the smoke alarm went off. It was 3:04 a.m. The piercing shriek jolted me awake. I ran into the hallway, saw smoke seeping from the closet. I thought it was an electrical fire, but when I opened the closet door, the crawlspace panel was gone, screws scattered on the floor. Something had come down, or tried to. And in the dust below were handprints, smudged, greasy, child-sized. The police came again. This time I was ready. I'd installed a motion-activated camera facing my hallway. The footage showed nothing unusual until 2:58 a.m. Then the screen shook slightly, like a tremor. And from the closet, in the far background, the panel shifts. A dark figure, tall, impossibly thin, drops silently into the hallway. He doesn't run. He crawls, elbows bent backward, limbs twitching like a spider. He crawls into Daniel's room. 1 minute, 2. Then he crawls back to the closet and disappears. We moved out that same day. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think. I stayed in a hotel, slept with the lights on. Daniel doesn't talk about it anymore, but he doesn't sleep in the dark. Not ever. The landlord called last month. Said a new tenant moved in, a young woman, alone. She asked to have the crawl space reopened, said she'd heard tapping. I didn't say anything. I just hung up. Some people think monsters live under the bed, but the worst ones look down at you while you sleep. The waitlist. You'd think that waiting for an apartment is just about timing, application, deposit, patience. But sometimes, you don't choose the apartment. It chooses you. I'm Charles, 41, software developer, divorced. This story takes place 2 years ago in downtown Minneapolis. After my separation, I spent 6 months crashing on my brother's couch. I needed a reset, my own place, something quiet. My income wasn't the issue. It was availability. Everything in my price range had a 6-month wait list. Everything except one. It was called the Vespertine, a luxury high-rise no one seemed to talk about. But the units were immaculate. Floor-to-ceiling windows, hardwood floors, smart thermostats. And yet the listing had a warning. Units offered by invitation only. It felt exclusive, elitist, maybe even scammy. Then one morning I got the call. A woman with a soft, neutral voice said, "Mr. Harlow, a unit has opened for you. 3rd floor, if you're still interested." I hadn't even applied. I toured it the same day. Everything looked pristine, but hollow, like a showroom that no one had ever actually lived in. The woman from the call greeted me in the lobby. She wore a gray pantsuit, expressionless, no name tag, no smile. She gave me the key fob and said, "If you have questions, dial 0 from your unit, but avoid the service stairwell after midnight." Odd, but I nodded. I moved in the next week, Unit 3C. No neighbors on either side. On my first night, I noticed something strange. The hallway lights never turned off. Even at 3 a.m., the building stayed lit like an emergency just ended, or hadn't started yet. And sometimes, in the elevator mirror, I'd see a second reflection beside me, standing perfectly still, even when no one else was there. The Vespertine had a digital resident directory in the lobby, touchscreen, sleek, updated nightly. One morning I checked it out of curiosity. Floor 3 listed me, Charles Harlow, along with units 3A and 3B, 2 other names, Isaac Lowell and Renata Ellis. I never saw them. The next morning 3B was blank, gone. By that evening, 3A was gone too. Now only my name remained. I asked the concierge about it, the same expressionless woman who had handed me the fob. She looked up slowly and said, "They were never residents." The stairwell was the only part of the building that felt truly off. The lights were too dim, the paint peeled near the corners, and it smelled like damp paper and steel. The third night I heard movement out there. Not footsteps, not breathing, more like shifting, skin against concrete. I remembered the warning. Avoid it after midnight. But I had to know. I cracked the door open a few inches and held my breath. Nothing. Then, slam. The door flew from my hand and shut behind me, and I was inside. The stairwell was colder than the rest of the building, the air heavier. I called out. Once. Twice. No answer. As I started climbing up to return to my floor, the lights flickered. A bulb overhead burst. Glass rained down the stairs like sleet. And from the bottom landing I heard something scrape. Not shoes, not footsteps, nails, dragging upward. I didn't wait. I bolted up the stairs, hands shaking, heart pounding. By the time I reached the third floor, I slammed the door open and fell into the hallway. The door locked behind me. I didn't look back. The next day, I pretended everything was fine. But I started digging. The building had no social media presence, no reviews, no listed manager, just a mailing address for payments. Vespertine Collective, Records Division. I took the elevator to B1, the sub-basement, marked Storage Only. There, behind a rusted steel door, I found old file cabinets stacked like a maze. Inside them were folders, hundreds, labeled by unit and year. Many had red stickers on them. Dates, names, faces. Every tenant in 3A, 3B, and 3C over the last 12 years. Every file ended the same way. Removed from list. No forwarding address. Assumed expired. Except one. Mine. My folder was still blank. That night the building made no noise. No elevator chimes. No hum of the vending machine. No buzzing fluorescent light. Just silence. I stayed up until 2 a.m., then 3. At 3:33 a.m., my unit phone rang. Not my cell, the landline in the kitchen. I picked it up. Dead air. Then, "We appreciate your patience, Mr. Harlow. You're next." I threw everything in a bag, didn't pack, didn't lock the door. As I left, I passed the lobby directory. My name had disappeared, replaced with a single word, processing. I stayed in hotels, left the state, tried to track down the Vespertine's ownership. Nothing. The building doesn't exist on any current city registry. Satellite images show a vacant lot. Even the mail I sent there returned, stamped, address not found. But I swear to you, it's still there. And some nights I get texts from numbers I don't recognize. They always say the same thing. A unit has opened for you. The waitlist never ends, and you're already on it. Her voice on the baby monitor. We spend 9 months preparing for their first breath, their first smile, their first word. But no one ever warns you. What it's like when you hear a voice that isn't theirs. My name is Alana. I was 32 when this happened. My husband and I had just bought a 2-story colonial in central Pennsylvania, our dream home. Our daughter Lily was 11 months old, bright, beautiful, the kind of baby that laughed at nothing and somehow made your worst day feel worth it. We moved in April, the air still cold but the sky trying hard to warm up. We set up her nursery on the 2nd floor, painted the walls pale green, installed shelves, stuck stars on the ceiling, and bought a digital baby monitor with 2-way audio, one with a camera feed and night vision. Top of the line. We wanted to hear her breathe, see her sleep, be present, even when we weren't in the room. We didn't know. We were opening a window for something else in to speak through. The first week passed normally. Then, on the 7th night, we heard something strange. It was around 2 a.m. Lily had been sleeping for hours, but the monitor made a soft click like it had picked up noise. We turned toward the screen. She was asleep, peaceful, but there was a voice. low, whispering. At first we thought it was a glitch, maybe a neighbor's monitor interfering. But we turned the volume up and heard, "Why won't she talk to me?" We convinced ourselves it was a tech error, maybe a bleed from another signal. We even called the manufacturer. They blamed signal overlap from a baby monitor in the same frequency range. So we changed channels, changed the password, reset the entire system. It happened again the next night. Same time. This time the voice said, "It's not fair. She gets all the love." And as we watched the screen, Lily turned in her crib. Not rolled, turned, as if someone had gently moved her. On the 10th night, we unplugged the monitor. It didn't matter. At 3:17 a.m., our phones rang. The monitor app had activated, on its own, showing the live feed. Lily was standing in her crib, staring at the camera, and we heard the voice again, this time, clearer, stronger. "Don't you remember me, Alana?" My stomach dropped. It sounded like a woman, raspy, familiar. I went cold, because I did recognize it. When I was 16, my older sister Rachel died. She was 19. We had a complicated relationship, fierce arguments, jealous fights, years of resentment. The night she died in a car accident, our last words were, "I hope I never see you again." I didn't attend her funeral, and now, 16 years later, her voice was speaking to my baby, through a digital monitor. "I loved her first," the voice hissed one night. "She's mine now." That night, we kept Lily in our bed. I went to turn off the monitor in the nursery, and found the camera, repositioned. It was no longer facing the crib. It was aimed at the rocking chair, in the corner, and on the seat was a single long strand of brown hair. Rachel's hair had been nearly waist length. Mine has always been short. We brought in a tech specialist. He found no anomalies, no hacks, no signs of external connection. I contacted a medium, something I'd once rolled my eyes at. She refused to enter the nursery, said the energy wasn't just residual. It was conscious, intentional, jealous. We tried everything. Blessings, salt lines, even a priest. Nothing worked. Then one night, while cleaning the attic crawl space, I found something wedged beneath the insulation. A dusty old shoebox. Inside, a baby rattle. A hospital ID band labeled Rachel Harlow, Infant Wing, 1987. And a photo of my sister, holding a baby. Not me, someone else. My mother never told me Rachel had a child. I confronted her. She broke down. Said Rachel had a baby at 16, a secret birth. The child lived only a few weeks, a heart condition. My mother told Rachel to forget. Said it was for the best. Rachel spiraled after that, and we, me and her, grew bitter. She resented how I got the love. She felt she'd lost. How I got to grow up. And now, through my daughter, she had returned. We stopped using the monitor, donated it. Lily's room was saged, locked. Things settled, for a while, until last month, on Lily's second birthday. She pointed to the dark corner of the room and said, "That's Auntie Ray. She sings to me when you sleep." We hadn't spoken that name around her, not once. Lullaby begins again, warped, distant. Narrator, soft, fading. Some voices don't come from the past. They wait there until they're strong enough to come through. Reflections you don't remember. You trust your memory. You trust the mirror. You trust that what you see is you. But what if one night, the mirror remembers something? You don't? My name is Marcus Lane. I'm 37 years old. Work in cybersecurity. Live alone. No kids, no pets. My life was boring. I liked it that way. I spent most of my time working remotely, running code audits, obsessively organizing my apartment. I knew where everything was. I knew every sound, every creak in the walls. That mattered to me, because I was recovering from something, a breakdown. 4 years ago, I had what doctors called a dissociative episode. I blacked out for nearly 3 hours. No drugs, no alcohol, no trauma, just gone. One moment, I was drinking coffee on the balcony. The next, I was standing in my hallway, shoes wet, keys missing, and no memory of where I'd been. Since then, I kept everything tight, routine, predictable, until the mirrors started changing. It started small. I'd pass by the mirror in my hallway, one I walked past 100 times a day, and something would feel wrong. Nothing obvious, just off. The reflection of the lamp was tilted slightly to the left, but the actual lamp hadn't moved. I tested it, turned the lamp 45 degrees, waited, watched. The reflection never changed, still the original angle. I chalked it up to lag in the smart mirror system, but that mirror wasn't connected to anything, it was just glass. Then the bruises began, tiny ones, upper arm, inner thigh, lower ribs, like someone had grabbed me, hard. But I lived alone, and I never left home, except for groceries. I set up cameras, one in the hallway, one in the living room, one in the bedroom. Everything looked normal, until I caught footage of myself standing in front of the mirror, 3:12 a.m., not moving, not blinking, just staring, for 47 minutes. The next night, I stayed up. No coffee, no distractions. At exactly 3:12 a.m., I sat in front of the hallway mirror. Nothing happened, until I blinked, and the reflection didn't. I leaned forward. So did it. But there was a delay. I lifted my hand. My reflection was slower, offbeat, like it was thinking about how to match me. I backed away, slowly, and then the reflection smiled, but I didn't. I smashed the mirror, cleaned it up, covered the wall. The next day, everything felt fine, until I opened my photo album. There were pictures I didn't recognize. Me, in places I'd never been, with people I'd never met. A photo of me in a leather jacket I've never owned, holding a woman's hand. She looked familiar, not from real life, from the mirror. That night, I got a text. No name, no number, no location. You left us behind, Marcus. We're still waiting. The line between my apartment and the reflection began to blur. Some mornings I'd wake up and the layout was mirrored. The couch on the opposite wall, the fridge on the wrong side. One morning, I opened the kitchen cabinet and found a bottle of antidepressants I never filled. A label written in someone else's handwriting, dated 3 years into the future. My clocks began jumping. 12:44, then 3:17, then back again, and my own voice began answering my voicemails. I sat one last time in front of the replacement mirror, just a simple one from the hardware store. No tricks, no tech. I asked it out loud, "What are you?" And in the silence, my reflection whispered, "You were never the real one." Then it reached forward, through the glass, and touched my chest. And suddenly, I remembered the missing hours, the gap in my life. I hadn't blacked out. I had been pulled in. They said I was found wandering the street 2 towns over. No ID, no shoes. Mumbling something about glass people. I don't talk about it anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I catch my reflection watching me, waiting, like it's wondering if I've forgotten again. And every time I blink, I pray that when I open my eyes, it's still me. Be careful with what you reflect, because one day, you might not be the one looking back. The girl behind the room. Sometimes the people we lose don't stay gone, and sometimes the door we shut behind them was never really closed. My name is Connor. 2 years ago, my wife, Lydia, and I moved into an old farmhouse in upstate New York. We'd spent the last year dealing with the kind of grief that doesn't announce itself. It just sits in the room, heavy and still. We'd lost our daughter. Her name was Rosie. She was 6. No warning. No goodbye. A sudden illness. Rare, aggressive, unrelenting. We buried her in the spring. By autumn, we were trying to rebuild whatever was left of ourselves. The farmhouse had a long upstairs hallway with 5 doors, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a linen closet, and one last room that had no key, no knob. Just a door, nailed shut with rusted hardware. The realtor said it was probably a storage crawl space. We didn't press. We didn't want to open anything anymore. The first sound came on a Thursday night. We were reading in bed, wind howling against the window panes. Then we heard it. Thump, thump, twice, rhythmic, small, like a knock, but from the inside. I looked at Lydia. Her face was pale, but calm. Neither of us moved. Then came the voice. A child's whisper, barely audible through the wall. "Mommy?" Lydia didn't speak for the rest of the night. The next morning she told me it was a dream. That grief can do strange things. Make sounds where there are none. And maybe she was right. I installed a camera in the hallway, just to make sure. That night, we heard it again. I'm still cold. We both stood in the hallway, staring at the sealed door. I reached out and touched the wood. It was warm, breathing, like something inside was alive. The nails on the door had shifted. One had fallen out entirely. A week later, Lydia found something in the laundry room. A piece of paper, a drawing, crayon, purple and green, a house with 3 stick figures, a man, a woman, and a little girl with curly hair. On the bottom, it read, "Our new home. Love, Rosie." We never brought Rosie's art to the new house. We had boxed everything and left it in storage 3 towns over. That same day, I found tiny fingerprints on the fogged bathroom mirror. Too small to be ours. On the 12th night, I checked the hallway camera footage. Around 3:21 a.m., the camera began to glitch. Then it cut out. I heard movement, not footsteps, dragging. I ran to the hallway. The door, the one nailed shut, was now slightly ajar, just an inch. Cold air rushed out, the smell of dirt, damp clothes, and something else. Something faintly sweet, like the shampoo Rosie used. Inside, it wasn't a crawl space. It was a fully furnished bedroom, child-sized, bed, books, toys, and on the wall drawn in crayon, "Thank you for letting me back in." After that night, Lydia began changing. She would talk to Rosie's room when I wasn't around, leave plates of food outside the door. I found her once, singing lullabies into the air, rocking an invisible weight in her arms. When I asked if she was okay, she looked at me with a strange smile and said, "She's been so patient." I started hearing Rosie too. Whispers in the kitchen, laughter in the attic. I opened the fridge one morning to find her favorite juice box, unopened, chilled. We hadn't bought those in over a year. One night, Lydia didn't come to bed. I searched the house, found her sitting on the floor of Rosie's room, back turned to me, gently humming. I said her name. Once, twice. She turned her head slowly and whispered, "She wants you now." Before I could respond, the door slammed shut behind me. Locks clicked from the inside. The lights went out, and in the darkness I heard tiny feet moving toward me. Then her voice, impossibly close to my ear. "Daddy?" I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. A neighbor had called the police after hearing screaming. They found me in the hallway, alone, covered in dust and splinters. Lydia was never found. The room was empty, no furniture, no toys, no drawings, just 4 walls and a sealed door. The camera footage was corrupted. All it showed was static, and the faint outline of a little girl, standing behind me the entire time. I moved away, changed my name. I don't tell people what happened, but sometimes in places I don't expect. A motel mirror, the backseat window, a bathroom tile. I see her reflection. Not aged, not faded, just standing still. waiting for someone to let her in again. 7 stories, 7 warnings. Not every door leads to safety. Not every reflection is honest. And not every goodbye is forever. If you're still listening, check the hallway. Check the ceiling. Check the monitor. And whatever you do, don't answer when the voice says your name. You've heard the footsteps. Felt the door shift. Watched the reflection that didn't follow. You made it to the end. But endings are just another kind of invitation. A whisper in the dark that says, "Come back tomorrow. We're not done with you yet." So if you're still awake, still breathing quietly in the dark, tap subscribe. Light stays on a little longer for those who stay with us. And remember, some stories don't end when the screen goes black.